My name is Janet Carson, and I'm 24 years old. If you'd asked me 5 years ago what my family's biggest strength was, I'd have said loyalty without hesitation. That's what we were built on, or at least that's what we used to tell ourselves. My parents raised us on the idea that no matter what happened in life, family comes first. The world can turn its back on you, my dad used to say, but blood never should. There were four of us kids, each playing our own part in what looked from the outside like a perfectly balanced family. Alexis, the eldest, at 29, was the radiant one, effortlessly charismatic, confident, the kind of woman who walked into a room and made everyone want to be near her. Samuel, 26, was the steady one, reliable and rational, the person we all went to when things got messy. Jacob, the youngest, at 22, had always been the quiet observer, too thoughtful for his age, the one who noticed things everyone else missed. And then there was me stuck in the middle, the bridge, the peacekeeper. I used to think that was my strength. Now I realize it was my curse. Growing up, Mom enforced togetherness like it was a religion. We had family dinners every Sunday, no excuses. If one of us was late, dinner didn't start. If someone skipped Mom's silence the following week, could freeze water. But in that rigidity, there was warmth too. We teased each other, told stories, laughed until someone cried. Those moments made me believe nothing could break us. That belief started to crumble the day Jacob brought home Emma. Emma was luminous. She wasn't the kind of beautiful that made people jealous. She was the kind that made you relax, like sunlight through glass. She had this easy laugh, the kind that drew people in, and a habit of remembering tiny details about you, making you feel special without trying. When Jacob first introduced her, his face glowed with a pride I'd never seen before. "This is Emma," he said, smiling like he'd just introduced us to the best thing that had ever happened to him. She fit into our family like she'd been there all along. Within minutes, she and Samuel were talking about their favorite books. Mom was offering her recipes, and even Dad, who rarely smiled, was cracking jokes. But what stood out most was how quickly Alexis warmed up to her. Finally, someone interesting, Alexis had said that night, clinking her wineglass against Emma's. It seemed harmless back then, Alexis being Alexis, bold and charming as ever. But as the night went on, I couldn't help but notice how often she looked at Emma. A glance that lingered a little too long. A joke followed by a shared smile that excluded everyone else. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I imagined it. Jacob didn't notice. He was too wrapped up in love to see the small things. The way Alexis leaned in when Emma spoke. The way Emma's laughter softened when Alexis teased her. That night, as I helped clear the table, Samuel nudged me. "You see it too, don't you?" See what I asked, even though I already knew. He gave a faint smile. Alexis likes attention. She's not used to sharing it. I laughed it off. "Come on, it's just dinner. Don't start drama where there isn't any." But as I was washing dishes, I caught Alexis in the reflection of the kitchen window. She was looking at Emma again, watching her, almost studying her. And for the first time, I felt a quiet unease in the house I'd always thought was unbreakable. Weeks passed, and Emma became a fixture in our lives. She joined every family gathering, every Sunday dinner. Jacob was the happiest I'd ever seen him planning trips, telling long stories that all ended with "Emma said this," or "Emma did that." But beneath the laughter, there were ripples. Alexis was suddenly everywhere Jacob and Emma went, helping them plan, offering advice, showing up uninvited under the excuse of just dropping by. One evening, after another one of Mom's dinners, I stood at the door, watching Alexis and Emma talking by the car. The air between them was charged, not romantic yet, but alive with something that didn't belong there. When Jacob turned around to wave goodbye, Alexis quickly stepped back, pretending to adjust her jacket. Emma looked down, smiling nervously. I didn't say anything. None of us did. Because in my family, loyalty didn't mean honesty. It meant silence. And silence, I would soon learn, can destroy more than betrayal ever could. It started as small moments, the kind you tell yourself don't mean anything. A laugh shared too long. A whisper across the table. A look that lingers. At first, I convinced myself I was imagining it. Alexis was just being her usual self, playful, magnetic, always craving a bit of attention. And Emma, well, she was friendly with everyone. That's what I told myself over and over because the alternative was unthinkable. But little by little, the air in our family began to change. At dinners, I started noticing how Emma always sat beside Alexis, how their conversations would spiral into private jokes no one else understood. Jacob would smile politely, pretending not to notice, but his eyes would dart between them every few seconds. During one Sunday dinner, I caught Samuel watching the same thing. He leaned toward me and murmured, You feel that too? I didn't answer. I didn't want to give it words. That night, after everyone left, I stayed behind to help Mom clean up. She hummed softly as she stacked plates, oblivious to the tension that was slowly infecting the family. She's sweet, isn't she? Mom said. Emma. I can see why Jacob's in love. I forced a smile. Yeah, she's perfect. But something inside me twisted at the word. A few weeks later, we all gathered at Samuel's place for a casual barbecue. The air smelled of grilled corn and beer, and for a moment it felt like old times, laughter teasing warmth. Alexis and Emma stood near the fence talking quietly while Jacob went inside to grab drinks. I watched them through the sliding door. The way Alexis leaned in close. The way Emma's laughter softened into something almost shy. Then, as Jacob stepped back outside, Emma suddenly straightened and took 2 careful steps away from Alexis. The gesture was so small anyone else might have missed it. But I didn't. Jacob froze mid-step. His expression didn't change, but the spark in his eyes dimmed just a little. He handed out the drinks without saying a word. That silence carried through the night like a ghost. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. It was Jacob. Hey, his voice sounded hesitant, almost fragile. Can I ask you something? Of course, I said, my stomach tightening. Do you think Emma and Alexis are too close? The question hit me like cold water. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I mean, he continued, I know they get along. But lately it feels like I'm not even in the room when they talk. Am I overreacting? I forced a soft laugh. Jake, you're overthinking. Alexis has that effect on people. She's intense, but harmless. He sighed. Yeah, maybe. But I could tell from his voice he didn't believe me. After that call, I couldn't unsee what was happening. The small touches, the shared smiles, the unspoken understanding between Alexis and Emma that no one else seemed to share. It was everywhere now, burning through every family gathering like a quiet fire under the floorboards. One evening, Samuel came over. We sat in the kitchen, the lights dim, a glass of wine between us. You're still pretending it's nothing, he said. What do you want me to say? I replied. He took a sip of wine, his eyes fixed on me. If you see smoke, Janet, it's not paranoia to think fire. I hated how right he sounded. The next Sunday dinner was a performance none of us wanted to be part of. Mom chatted endlessly about the garden, Dad scrolled through his phone, and Alexis and Emma were as usual the center of attention, laughing, teasing, playing verbal ping-pong that made everyone else invisible. Jacob's fork barely touched his food. I saw him swallow hard, like every laugh from them was another cut. When Emma reached over to grab a napkin, her hand brushed Alexis's. Too long, too comfortable. Both froze only for a heartbeat, then smiled as if nothing happened. But I caught the flicker in Jacob's eyes. After dinner, as we were putting dishes away, Samuel finally spoke. She's crossing lines, he muttered, and Alexis knows it. I looked toward the living room where Emma and Alexis were still laughing. What do you want me to do? I whispered. Do something before he breaks. I didn't answer because I didn't know how. That night, I dreamed of our family sitting around the table again. The same laughter, the same warmth, only this time the plates were empty and the glasses cracked. No one spoke, but I could hear something breaking beneath the silence. When I woke up, my phone buzzed again. It was Jacob. She's been distant all week, the message read. I asked if something's wrong. She said she needs space. Then another text followed a minute later. I think I'm losing her. I stared at the screen, my heart sinking. Because deep down, I knew he already had. The text came on a Thursday morning. Just 2 words. She's gone. For a few seconds, I didn't understand. Gone where? Business trip, visiting family. But then the next message came through, 3 more words that made my stomach twist. She left me. By the time I reached Jacob's apartment, the sun was already setting. The front door was open, hanging slightly ajar. Inside, it looked like a storm had passed through. Clothes, half-packed picture frames knocked over the faint smell of Emma's perfume, still clinging to the air. Sweet floral haunting. Jacob sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, eyes red but dry. He wasn't crying. He looked hollow, as if something inside him had been scooped out. She didn't even try to hide it, he said quietly when I sat beside him. She just said it like it was nothing. I swallowed hard. Said what? He looked up, eyes burning. That she's in love with Alexis. The world stopped for a moment. The hum of the refrigerator, the cars outside, even my heartbeat, all of it faded. I whispered, what? She told me she's been seeing her. My own sister Janet. His voice cracked. They've been sneaking around for months, and I didn't see it. There's no word strong enough for the kind of silence that follows something like that. I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or lie. Instead, I reached for his shoulder, but he flinched away. Don't, he said. You probably knew, didn't you? That hit harder than anything else. I wanted to say no, to insist I hadn't, that I was just as blindsided as he was. But I couldn't, because deep down I had known. Not fully, not consciously, but I'd felt it, and I'd done nothing. Jake, I whispered, but my voice broke. He stood up, running a hand through his hair. She said she didn't mean for it to happen, that she and Alexis just connected. What does that even mean? You don't just connect with your boyfriend's sister. I didn't have an answer. That night, I drove straight to Alexis's apartment. The hallway light flickered as I knocked, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised to see me, just tired. Before you say anything, she said, crossing her arms, I know how it looks. How it looks, I repeated. You're sleeping with your brother's girlfriend, Alexis. There's not a lot of angles where this looks good. She rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic. Jacob shattered. And you? He'll get over it, she cut in sharply. You act like I killed someone. The calm in her voice scared me more than anger would have. You killed something, I said quietly. Our family. For a brief second, her mask cracked. I saw guilt, or maybe fear, flicker in her eyes. Then it was gone. Love doesn't choose sides, Amy, she said finally. It just happens. I stared at her, realizing I didn't recognize my sister anymore. No, I said, my voice shaking. Love doesn't destroy everyone it touches. That's not love, Alexis. That's selfishness dressed up as fate. I left before she could reply. By the next day, everyone knew. Samuel was furious. She's dead to me, he said over the phone. You don't do that to your own brother. Not ever. Dad didn't speak much. He just sat at the kitchen table, hands clasped, jaw clenched. Finally, he muttered, You're no daughter of mine until you fix what you destroyed. Mom tried to defend her, of course. She's still my child, she whispered through tears. You can't just erase her. Dad didn't look up. Watch me. Days blurred together after that. Jacob stopped answering calls. He moved out of the apartment he'd shared with Emma, left most of his things behind. Samuel checked on him, but even he said Jake barely spoke. Then came the real slap in the face Alexis and Emma didn't hide. They went out together smiling like they hadn't just torn our family apart. Photos surfaced on social media, them laughing at a cafe, arms linked at a music festival, Alexis's hand resting casually on Emma's shoulder. Mom begged me not to look, but I did. Every photo was a knife. Samuel sent me one with no caption. He didn't need one. A few weeks later, Mom hosted a dinner to talk things through. None of us wanted to go, but guilt won. When I walked in, Alexis was already there, sitting at the table like nothing had happened. Emma wasn't there, thank God, but her presence hung over everything. Thank you for coming, Mom said, trying to smile. Samuel folded his arms. Let's just get this over with. Alexis looked around, exasperated. You're all acting like I committed a crime. I fell in love. It's not that simple. Jacob wasn't there, but his absence filled every inch of the room. Samuel slammed his hand on the table. You betrayed him. You betrayed us. Alexis didn't flinch. I followed my heart. I wanted to scream, to ask how she could say that while her brother was barely functioning. But I didn't, because part of me knew shouting wouldn't bring back what she'd broken. When I left that night, I looked back at the table, our old table, the same one we'd grown up laughing around, and realized it wasn't a place for family anymore. It was a crime scene. A year passed. You'd think time would dull the anger, but in our family, time just made the silence louder. Alexis and Emma had built their new life together as if nothing had happened. Photos of their vacations, weekend brunches, and new beginnings filled social media. Every post looked rehearsed, two women in love, smiling too wide, the kind of smiles that dared the world to judge them. But our family didn't judge them. We erased them. At least most of us did. Mom still called Alexis sometimes. She'd do it secretly, thinking none of us knew, but Samuel caught her once whispering in the kitchen at midnight. She's still my daughter, she said, tears glistening in her eyes. You'll understand when you're a parent. Samuel had replied coldly, then be her parent. But don't expect us to be her family. The final insult came that spring. An envelope slid through the mail slot at Dad's house. Thick ivory embossed with gold. A wedding invitation. Alexis and Emma, June 12th. They'd invited all of us. When I read it, my first reaction was laughter, bitter, sharp disbelief breaking out as a laugh. Samuel tore his in half the moment he opened it. Is she actually insane? He barked. She thinks we'll celebrate this. Dad didn't say a word. He took the envelope, folded it carefully, and dropped it into the trash without looking at it. But Mom kept hers. A week before the wedding, she said softly, I'm going. Samuel's eyes went wide. You can't be serious. She's still my daughter. Mom repeated the same line she'd been clinging to for a year. She made mistakes, but I can't abandon her on her wedding day. Dad stood up. If you walk into that church, don't come back here. Mom didn't answer. The day of the wedding, the rest of us did what we always did on Sunday's dinner at Samuel's place, trying not to talk about the elephant in the room. Jacob came surprisingly. He looked better. Still quiet, still cautious, but there was color in his face again. He picked at his food while we sat in uneasy silence. Finally, he said, "So, she's getting married today." Samuel scoffed. "Don't remind us." Jacob gave a small, tired smile. "It's fine. Let her have it." His voice was calm, but I could feel the storm he'd buried beneath it. Later, when the others had gone to the living room, I caught him on the balcony staring out at the city lights. "Does it hurt?" I asked quietly. He didn't turn to me. "It doesn't feel real enough to hurt anymore." That night, Mom posted a picture. She stood beside Alexis in her wedding dress, white silk, sleek hair, that same bright, confident smile. The caption read, "Love wins, always." My phone buzzed nonstop. Samuel sent the post. Dad saw it too. No one said a word in the group chat. We didn't have to. When Jacob saw it, he just stared at the screen for a long time. Then he turned the phone off, placed it face down on the table, and whispered, "She looks happy." "Do you believe that?" I asked. He shook his head. No. Weeks turned into months. Alexis and Emma's honeymoon phase played out in public, every post polished and perfect. They bought a house near the lake, a bright glass-fronted thing that looked more like a magazine cover than a home. Everyone else kept moving forward. Samuel got promoted. Dad buried himself in work. Mom tried to keep the peace, and Jacob slowly started going back to the gym, seeing friends again. But me, I couldn't stop thinking about Alexis, about the night I confronted her, about how certain she'd sounded when she said love doesn't choose sides. If she truly believed that, why did her voice shake? One afternoon, months after the wedding, I saw her. I'd been at the grocery store when I spotted her across the parking lot, Alexis sunglasses on, hair tied back, wearing a loose sweater that swallowed her frame. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just diminished. She didn't see me at first. She was standing by her car, staring at her phone, her jaw tight. Then she looked up, and for a moment our eyes met. She froze. So did I. Neither of us moved. Then, without a word, she turned away, got into her car, and drove off. I stood there holding my bag of groceries, realizing my hands were shaking. Later that week, I overheard something that killed whatever sympathy I'd started to feel. A friend of mine, one who still worked with Alexis at her old company, mentioned seeing her at a lunch meeting. She was bragging, my friend said. Said Jacob was always too serious. That Emma needed someone who could keep up with her. Said you all were overreacting. My chest went cold. All the guilt, all the doubt I'd been carrying for months gone in an instant. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table and whispered out loud just to myself. She doesn't regret it. Not a bit. Then I realized something even worse, she never would. When I closed my eyes that night, I saw the family we used to be. Sunday dinners, laughter echoing in the kitchen. Jacob teasing Alexis' mom's apron covered in flour. Then I saw Alexis in her white dress smiling beside Emma, and that old image shattered like glass. Forgiveness, I whispered, died the day she smiled in that picture. It happened almost 2 years after the wedding, long enough for most of us to stop wondering what Alexis and Emma were doing, but not long enough for Jacob's scar to fade. We had all learned to live without them, or so we thought. That night I was making dinner when Mom called. Her voice was trembling. "Janet, it's Alexis. She needs us." I nearly dropped the pan. What happened? "It's Emma," she said, and then she started to cry. Alexis caught her cheating. For a second, I just stood there staring at the wall, letting her words sink in. Then I laughed. I didn't mean to. It just slipped out. "You're kidding, right?" I wish I was. The irony was so sharp it hurt. Alexis had torn our family apart for Emma, and now she'd been betrayed by her too. Mom kept talking words, tumbling through her sobs. She walked in on them. Emma and her best friend. Some man named Chris. That name meant nothing to me, but it didn't matter. The story was already familiar. The betrayal, the shock, the cold realization that love can rot from the inside. I'd seen this movie before. When I told Samuel, he nearly choked on his coffee. "You're telling me Emma cheated on Alexis with a guy?" He let out a low whistle. Guess karma doesn't skip generations or siblings. Dad just said good and went back to reading his newspaper. Jacob, though, didn't react the way I expected. When I told him, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said figures. "That's it?" I asked, surprised. "Don't you feel vindicated?" He looked at me, his expression strangely calm. "What good would that do?" It doesn't change what she did. Pain doesn't cancel pain, Janet. It just keeps spreading. That was the thing about Jacob. Even after being broken, he never turned bitter. He learned to let go quietly while the rest of us still picked at our wounds. Over the next few weeks, Mom kept me updated. She said Alexis was a wreck, barely sleeping, barely eating. She'd been staying at a friend's place since Emma moved out. She keeps saying she doesn't understand how it happened, Mom said over the phone one evening. I almost snapped. How it happened. She knows how it happened. She's lived this story just on the other side. She's heartbroken, Janet. I pinched the bridge of my nose. She's heartbroken because she finally knows what she put Jacob through. Mom didn't answer. Then came the kicker. A few days later, Mom called again, sounding strangely hopeful. Emma reached out to Alexis, she said softly. She wants to meet. I froze. Why? She says she made a mistake, that she still loves her. For a long moment, I said nothing. Then I asked, and Alexis doesn't know what to do. I laughed bitterly. I do. She should remember exactly what it felt like to watch someone she trusted destroy her life and walk away. Mom sighed. You've grown so cold, Janet. No, I said. I've just stopped confusing forgiveness with blindness. When Emma's affair went public, her picture-perfect world shattered overnight. She and her lover Chris didn't last long. He dumped her a month later. Apparently, he wasn't ready for commitment. The irony was enough to choke on. Emma tried to go back to Alexis, crying, begging, saying she'd lost herself. But this time, Alexis said no. Mom told me about it like it was a redemption arc. She finally learned, she said. She's not taking Emma back. But I didn't believe that was wisdom. It was pride, the same pride that had made her believe she could have whatever she wanted. Then one evening, Mom called again, her voice small. Alexis wants to talk to Jacob. I froze. What? She says she needs to apologize. She wants to make things right. Mom, no. She's changed Janet. I shook my head, though she couldn't see me. No. She's sorry because she's miserable. That's not the same thing. But Mom didn't listen. She never did when it came to Alexis. 2 nights later, Jacob called me furious. She was there. Who? Alexis' mom invited me over, said she just wanted to talk. I walked in and Alexis was sitting at the table. My chest tightened. Oh my God. I almost left right then. Jacob said, his voice shaking. But she started talking, said she was sorry that she'd been blind, that she finally understood what it felt like. I just stood there, Janet, listening. And then I realized something. What? He was quiet for a long moment. She wasn't apologizing for me. She was apologizing for herself. Because she hates who she's become. It wasn't about me at all. What did you do? I told her I forgave her. My breath caught. You did? Yeah. But I didn't do it for her. He exhaled slowly. I did it so I could stop carrying her around with me. I didn't know whether to cry or be proud. When he hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. The kind that hums in your ears. Maybe that's what real strength looks like. Not vengeance, not victory. Just peace. Later that night, I checked my phone. A message from Mom. Alexis is moving out of town. She said she can't stay where she burned everything. I stared at that text for a long time before replying. Good. Because forgiveness didn't mean rebuilding what was broken. Sometimes it just meant letting the ashes be ashes. I didn't see Alexis again until almost 6 months later. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind of quiet day that used to belong to family dinners before everything fell apart. I'd stopped expecting surprises by then, but life has a cruel way of finding you when you think the storm's past. Mom called her voice measured and too calm. That was always the warning. Janet, she said, can you come by for lunch? I made your favorite roast chicken. I hesitated. Who's there? Just me, she lied. I should have known better. When I arrived, the first thing I noticed was an extra car in the driveway. Silver, spotless, familiar. My heart sank. Inside, the air was tense, heavy with the smell of rosemary and things unsaid. Mom greeted me at the door too brightly. I thought we could all eat together today, like old times. And there she was, Alexis, sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. She looked smaller, paler, like life had taken a bite out of her, and she hadn't recovered. Janet, she said softly. Hey. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Jacob walked in from the back porch. His face froze when he saw her. What is she doing here? He said quietly. But the calm in his voice carried more danger than shouting ever could. Mom stepped forward, wringing her hands. I just thought you two could talk. Get everything out in the open. Jacob turned to leave immediately, but Alexis stood. Wait. Please. She looked at him with eyes that finally seemed to understand what she'd destroyed. You don't have to forgive me. I just need to say it. Jacob stopped in the doorway. The silence stretched between them. She continued, voice trembling. I thought I was in love. I thought that made everything okay, but I was wrong. What I did to you. Her voice cracked. I didn't just lose you, Jacob. I lost everything that made me a decent person. He didn't respond. She swallowed hard. When Emma cheated on me, it hurt. It really hurt. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was realizing I'd done the same thing, to someone who never deserved it. Her hands shook as she spoke. I can't take it back. I can't fix it. But if it means anything, I am so, so sorry. Jacob stared at her for a long moment. Then he said softly, You didn't just betray me. You taught me that love can rot from the inside when it's built on lies. Alexis's shoulders slumped. He took a breath. But I don't hate you anymore. She looked up startled. I forgive you, he said, but that doesn't mean I want you back in my life. And with that, he turned and walked out. Mom covered her mouth, eyes brimming with tears. Alexis stood frozen, staring at the space where he'd been. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to feel satisfaction seeing her fall apart. But watching her sink into that chair, trembling and silent, I realized something. Guilt is its own punishment. She didn't need me to hate her. She already hated herself enough. Weeks passed after that awkward family lunch. Jacob stopped by occasionally, but never asked about Alexis again. Mom didn't bring her up either. The subject was a ghost that haunted the corners of our conversations. Samuel got engaged that summer. The family finally had something good to gather around again. At the engagement dinner, Jacob smiled more than I'd seen in years. He'd been seeing someone new, a gentle, kind woman named Lila, who made him laugh easily. When I hugged him goodbye that night, I whispered, I'm proud of you. He smiled. I'm proud of me too. One rainy afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Dear Janet, you don't owe me anything. I just wanted to say thank you for trying to keep the family together, even when I didn't deserve it. I'm leaving the city. I can't stay here anymore. Every corner of this place reminds me of what I destroyed. I hope one day when people say my name, it doesn't sting as much. Take care of Mom. Tell Jacob I wish him peace. Alexis. I read it twice, then set it on the windowsill. The rain outside blurred the ink until her name almost disappeared. Months later, Mom told me Alexis had moved to a small coastal town up north. No one knew exactly where. She said Alexis worked at a bookstore by the sea, quiet, unremarkable, rebuilding her life one small day at a time. Sometimes I wonder if she watches the waves and thinks about us, about loyalty, love, and all the ways they can twist into something unrecognizable. But mostly I don't wonder, because forgiveness doesn't mean reunion. It means release. The last time we were all together was at Samuel's wedding. The sky was clear, the music soft, and for once there was laughter without tension. Jacob danced with Lila under the string lights, and I watched them realizing how far we'd come. When Dad raised his glass, he said quietly, To family. Not the one we lost, but the one we still have. I felt my throat tighten, because he was right. Some parts of family break beyond repair, but the pieces that survive, they shine sharper, truer, because they've known what it costs to stay. As the night ended, I looked up at the stars and whispered, Maybe family isn't who stays loyal. Maybe it's who learns when to let go. Far away on a quiet shore, I hope Alexis looked up at the same stars and finally understood.